If you think that you don't know what synchronous learning is about, you're wrong. You do know. You just haven't put a name to it yet. First of all, we're going to investigate what synchronous learning is, and then we will investigate what the good, the bad, and the ugly is with synchronized learning. Why? Well, I would argue that by understanding what synchronous learning entails, you can take an important step towards becoming a better facilitator. Synchronous learning happens when all participants learn at the same time in the same space. And that space can be a physical or a digital room, it doesn't matter. All the learning that might have happened during your school years was probably done in a synchronous way, although the corona pandemic has certainly changed this for a whole generation. So synchronous learning has historically happened in classrooms, in line with a course schedule, and led by a teacher. As you realize, the historical application of synchronous learning has thus been implemented in very controlled and physical environments. More recently, and most notably during the pandemic, a lot of synchronous physical learning was moved online to digital synchronous formats. And in my experience, a lot of this movement happened in a quite panicked way, without any knowledge of the difference in learning experience delivery between physical and digital formats. A lot of facilitators took their PowerPoint, developed for a classroom settings, and simply moved it to an online format. And let's be honest, most PowerPoints were no good to start with, right? By doing this, they did not only repeat their old crime of subjecting their learners to death by PowerPoint, but they actually also enforced Zoom fatigue to the point of actually double killing their participants. Add a digital divide between generations, and in some cases access to internet. And it's no surprise that this practice has resulted in a strong resistance to digital learning solutions. But if this is the current situation, what is synchronous learning actually good for? By its nature, synchronous learning is especially well suited for collaborative tasks, and it's very feedback friendly, as you can communicate in real time and get both feedback and answers to questions instantly. For teachers, synchronous methods make it easy to see participants perform different tasks and thus get direct feedback about the current understanding and their current learning needs. As such, it allows for a lot more interaction between participants and between the participant and their facilitator. Synchronous learning and social learning should go hand in hand because of this. Some of the aspects that make synchronous learning bad or less learner-centered is first of all that it dictates when and where learners should learn. Participants don't have any access to the content or their peers outside of the designated time and space. Synchronous learning has for a long time been synonymous with classroom teaching, where the teacher talks and the student listens. Sadly, we still see a lot of facilitators and teachers practice this one-way communication and the way of trying to instill learning upon their students. This is despite all that we know of how ineffective this type of one-way communication is for deeper learning. In larger groups, it's easy and in fact quite ugly to neglect certain participants, while others, usually the loudest, take up a lot of time and energy from the facilitator. If this is the case, the learning experience doesn't allow for equal participation, a really ugly side of synchronous learning. The quality of synchronous session is thus highly dependent on professional facilitators. Synchronous learning should be used to dive deep into the content, discussing dilemmas, and support an open dialogue about different aspects of the content at hand. Effective synchronous learning builds upon effective and active participation under the guidance of the facilitator. The facilitator's role should be to guide the work with clear instructions, monitor the work, and ask questions that might help the participant when they get stuck. The facilitator should only, as a last resort, provide the participants with the answer. If you use synchronous learning in this way, The facilitator will gain valuable feedback about the participants' knowledge and skills and can adapt their facilitation according to the needs of the participants. It might seem like synchronous learning is problematic, to say the least. At first glance, it seems like it's not very learner-centered and that there are many inherent problems with it, which is true. However, and as we just noted, this way of delivering learning experiences is extremely dependent on the skills of the facilitator. When used in the right way by a facilitator with the right intentions and methods at their disposal, synchronous learning can in fact provide unparalleled opportunities for social learning that enables the participants to go deeper together than they would have been able to do alone. In summary, synchronous learning, if done correctly, is great. It does, however, require really good facilitators to reach its potential. But there are also some obvious drawbacks with synchronous learning, especially in terms of allowing participants to decide for themselves when, where, and what to learn. So by now, you should know the basics of what synchronous learning is, and what the good, the bad, and the ugly is with synchronous learning.